because you mentioned already Craighead Park, so it was literally a hop, skip and a jump from Blantyre 1.
Heat 6, scores still level, 15 points each, and the riders from the inside for the Kishorn Winders Tigers, Steve Lawson in red. Gate 2, Buzz Burrows for the Stelrad Monarchs. Gate 3, Jim Beaton in blue for the Kishorn Winders Tigers, and on the outside, Doug Wire in white for the Stelrad Monarchs. And it's Steve Lawson to the first bend first. Doug Wire goes round him though. Another fine first bend by Doug Wire. And at the moment it's Buzz Burrows in third place. Buzz showing a tendency to go wide as he did in Heat 2. And Jim Beaton will be on hand to take advantage of that. Wire's been a tremendous rider so far in his season and a bit in the National League. Appeared to be something of a spent force in the British League with Halifax, but he certainly doesn't look like a spent force out there. Very experienced rider, going very well so far this season. Steve Lawson second, and Buzz Burrows now coming under a bit of pressure from Jim Beaton at the back, and Jim Beaton's particularly aggressive on the final turn generally. He's trying the outside run. Who's going to get there? It's Buzz Burrows hanging on for a good third place. So that scores are now split up, and it's the Stelrad Monarchs who go into the lead by 19 points to 17, and they extend their overall lead to 30 points.
And we were in Craighead Park, and as you say, it was a bit more basic. The track was a bit squarer. It served a good purpose for the club. It kept the club alive, and that was the main thing, I guess. But and gave the Glasgow side, which was a bit, it was a bit of a jigsaw puzzle year on year with some of the teams that you had to lead in the early 80s. But it served a purpose and gave Glasgow a bit of a home advantage. Fair to say.
Well, it wasn't as much as a home advantage as the Blantyre 1 at Craighead Park, but I don't think riders like to come to there either. Mind you, he could take the rain. I remember one meeting, it was absolutely flooded. It must have been a foot deep on the inside, and I managed to get it all off, and we raced. I think it was Weymouth. They didn't want to come back. They wanted to crack on, but it could take the rain. That's one good point about it.
I remember the meeting you're talking about. If I'm not mistaken, it was a Saturday night or something. I remember Simon Wigg, with all the going along the back straight and all the spray coming off, and it was it was an awful heavy track. And I remember, Steve, there was quite a few fellow Cumbrian riders managed to pull on a Glasgow race jacket during those early 80s. I'm thinking Des Wilson, Jack Irvin, Jeff Powell, to name but three. I guess you had a hand in some of that.
Well, they all kept the bikes at the farm, and Jeff Powell, he just lived when we had the shop in Workington. He just lived across the road, and Des and Jack Irvin, we used to mess about on push bikes, doing as kids do, together, and then we all sort of followed the speedway dream, and they kept the bikes at the farm, and we'd go on the beach and practice down there and stuff. Yeah, I mean, once a track closes, you lose that feeder, don't you, to speedway in general. There's a lot of decent riders come out of Cumbria. You've got your number one there at present. It's Cumbria born and bred. Such as, in fact, we could have run a World Team Cup team Cumbria at one point. with Cookie, Richard, Dan. Yeah. You got and Adam Royden is Cumbrian.
That's not a bad side actually, is it? Yeah. I reckon they could beat Finland or France or someone.
Yeah.
And listen, see, the other thing, thinking back to that era, Craighead Park, the other thing which, lots of Tigers fans will clearly remember, and we laugh about it now, but at the time it wasn't so funny. And it used to be a case of how many points was Steve Lawson going to score away from home, because if you had a bad night, the team were hammered. If you had a good night, we were just well beaten, and there was a big difference there. You must remember some of the. I'm thinking some of the visits to places like Exeter and Hackney and Boston and places like that, where there must have been some pressure on you, Steve, surely, just to go and do your stuff at number one.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously I did my best everywhere apart from Exeter. I used to hate the place. I would look at the fixtures when the fixtures come out, and I would look to see when Exeter was, and then I'll try and put it out of my mind. But it's not until August. That's all right. I can enjoy the first half of the season. But no, I used to hate the place, and I just hated it. It was. I once went there with Bellevue, and I was in front of, I think it was Vackler Turner, and I knew you had to ride wide. And I was going down the street, and there can't have been much of a gap between me and the metal safety fence.
Yeah.
And he squeezed through, and I saw the sparks coming off his foot peg, scraping along the fence. And I thought to myself, I don't need this. Oh, well, that finished me for life on that track.
You didn't have an engine failure, did you? At that point.
I think I did pull in after that.
And Steve, another thing, just another memory, I guess, of that same era was you seemed to, and the team seemed to have a real strong bond, a rapport with the Glasgow supporters, and I remember some of the away trips, featured the riders travelling on the Beaton's coach along with the supporters.
Yeah. Oh, it was great. I mean, you couldn't picture it nowadays, but at the time, it was, the precious memories.
Yeah.
I remember we went to Wimbledon once, and I was third in Heat 1, and I don't think I did much better in the second ride, and I got second in Heat 8, and some of the Glasgow fans were doing the tango around the
cause for celebration.
Yeah.
Steve,
I remember we came out of Hackney, and I think I got about 14 points, and I was carried from the pits to the bus. Yeah, it was fantastic.
That speaks volumes in terms of what the Glasgow fans thought of you, Steve. Let's move on from Craighead Park. We'll put that behind us. And 1987 is a year that not too many people speak about when it comes to Glasgow Speedway. And that was a year, just as a reminder, Glasgow had no track. We had to exit Craighead Park to make way for the motorway. And Workington had a speedway track but no team. A marriage made in heaven. The Workington Tigers.
I know. It was destined for disaster, I think, wasn't it? I mean, all the crew came down on the afternoon of the meeting and tried to get everything organised. The track watering, everything tried to be done on that afternoon for the evening meeting. And it just ironically, and the track wasn't good. There was nobody able to do the track properly. In fact, my dad went down to help out, and he managed to get the track because he would just go on the tractor from the farm here, and he'd go with the blade, and he managed to get the track shaped up the best it had been.
Yeah.
And I think that was the week we were expunged from the league. I think
that was the word, expunged, yeah.
Yeah. And that was it. We never got to test the track out after my dad prepped it.
That wasn't the same week the slurry was laid on the track instead of water, was it?
Oh no, that wasn't my dad's fault. That was another contract that came down. There was one week that that used before environment and things were involved. They used to stuck the water out of the river, and there was little fish on the track, flipping away on the track.
Oh, wow. And of course, 87, Steve, should have been your testimonial season.
Yeah.
That was postponed for a year because let's move on and tell some happier tales, because from one extreme to another, from being expunged in 87, and I remember the winter of 87 into 88, I remember as all Tigers fans were summoned one winter's night to Shawfield Stadium, and there was a lovely big, a bit of a talk, a meeting. Neil Grant, Tom McCrone were involved in fronting that. And then I remember they switched the lights off, opened up the blinds, and we all gazed out into this very, very plush-looking speedway stadium. I mean, there was a few tears and a few eyes that night.
Yeah, but there was. Yeah, I mean, Dick Barry was very instrumental in a lot of the publicity stuff that happened there, and he hit the right notes. He got the right people. You know, Dick Barry had a major part to play in that first year. You know, he used his radio contacts, and it really, Dick was, you know, we've got to be thankful for a lot of the work that Dick did, and Neil Grant as well. That, you know, they worked tirelessly, and Tom himself. You know, and a lot of the other guys but Dick was instrumental in you know, the big launch that we had.
Side gate, and that could be an advantage, although Steve Lawson so impressive round that first corner. Here we go, 46-44 in favour of the Belmont Monarchs, and Les Collins has made a fine start. Steve Lawson trying to drive past him down the back straight, and I think he's done it. Lawson leads, Collins second, and Phil Jeffrey holding the vital third at the moment. Finish this way, it's a draw. But it's close for first and it's close for third. Les Collins right on Steve Lawson's tail. And Phil Jeffrey still holding off Brett Saunders at the back as they go into the last lap. Les Collins so close with Steve Lawson, and Collins inside Lawson down the back straight. Les Collins leads into the last corner. What a burst by Collins. And Les Collins has done it for the Belmont Monarchs. Tremendous finish. Good heavens, that was absolutely magnificent. And Brett Saunders got third as well. So that's crucial in the two-leg aspect of this match. But right at the last gasp, the Belmont Monarchs snatch a 4-2. What a finish. Sporting handshake between the two great riders up front there. Brett Saunders takes third, and the Monarchs win by 50 points to 46, and they will be absolutely delighted with that. This is the final race, heat 16. The scores are level, 45 points all. Les Collins rides for Edinburgh off gate number 1. Martin McKenna is in gate 2, replacing Phil Jeffrey. Gate 3 at Scott Lamb. On the outside gate, the Tigers skipper Steve Lawson. And this race decides the destination of the Convener's Trophy, which is up for competition for tonight's match. 45 all. And understandably, the riders taking a while to settle. Such tremendously hard-fought matches these between Glasgow and Edinburgh, and this has lived right up to all the expectations. And it's Collins and Lawson who's going to make it round the first turn. It's Lawson. Lawson leads. Collins second, and Martin McKenna thinks in third. Les Collins going for the wide run, but he's dropped back. And Martin McKenna's holding a reasonably comfortable third at the moment. 2 races for the price of 1 here. Be closer at the back than it is at the front, although I think Martin McKenna's got it. Into the final lap, Steve Lawson still with a reasonable advantage over Les Collins, and this is a great ride by the Tigers captain. Les Collins close, but not close enough. Tigers are going to win tonight's match in the Convener's Trophy. Steve Lawson takes it. Second place goes to Les Collins, third to Martin McKenna. The 4-2 in favour of the 261 Tigers, who win tonight's match by 49 points to 47.
Launch. It was in front of almost 8,000, I think was the official attendance at Shawfield that opening night
Yeah.
against Edinburgh. What's your recollections of? I can remember you in different interviews subsequently talking about, for the first time in your career, being able to hear the noise of the crowd over the engine.
Yeah, I can still hear it now. Yeah, it was, it's strange, because there were noisy things in them days, speedway bikes, compared to what they are now. The new silencers and what have you. But to hear the roar of the crowd, you'd have to look over your shoulder. You think, what's happened? It was a bit daunting. But and that season, a lot of them came back, week in, week out. No, it was absolutely. We thought we'd arrived.
Absolutely.
The stadium was nice as well, wasn't it? Then I think it got a bit run down, after a few years, but it looked really plush then, didn't it?
Yeah, I think Glasgow have always been, well, theoretically Glasgow have always been a big city club, but we never really had ever since the club left Hampden in the early 70s, we didn't really have the trappings of a big city club. But moving to Shawfield in '88 certainly brought that back again. So you had five seasons at Shawfield. You mentioned already that was potentially your favourite track. You enjoyed Shawfield?
I still preferred Blantyre 1
Mm-hmm.
as a racetrack for myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, Shawfield was, just the pits, everything about it was nice. It was well turned out, and you felt as though you're in a first class club.
Heat number 12, and an understandable groan from the Glasgow crowd as Reading announced their rider replacement, the unbeaten Ray Morton. His partner is also the unbeaten Jan Anderson, and the Glasgow opposition provided by Steve Lawson and decidedly out of touch this evening, Jason Lyons. So let's see if the Glasgow can pick up this elusive heat win, but with Ray Morton and Jan Anderson facing them, it's going to be very, very difficult indeed. Jason sitting, holding up proceedings just now. He was looking at the fence and revving his bike. A lot of smoke coming out of it, so hopefully he hasn't had any engine problems, because we would like to see him do something good in heat number 12. And it looks as if it could be Steve Lawson for the first time this evening, heading into the first and also the second bends and coming out ahead of the Reading racers. And not only that, but he has a gap. He has daylight between himself and Ray Morton and Jan Anderson. So come on, can this be the race that does it all? Certainly the Glasgow crowd hope so, because for the first time this evening we're actually hearing the Glasgow crowd cheering. And slipping through into third place comes Jason Lyons. Have the Reading racers relaxed too much? The impressive Jan Anderson dropped, and Stevie Lawson still up ahead as Ray Morton does the chasing, but he's not catching the Glasgow skipper, and Jason Lyons looks as if he's catching Ray Morton. So this is more like the Tigers we want to see, and more like the Tigers the crowd want to see as they roar their home favourites on. They're happy seeing Steve in front there, but they'd be an awful lot happier if Jason could come up that inside and get underneath Ray Morton. They roar and he's away! Come on, Jason, he's done it as the crowd goes ecstatic. Steve Lawson comes home in first place. A great ride from Jason Lyons, and Ray Morton in third place. We can certainly put that down as the best race of the night, because Glasgow take 5 points, Reading take 1, and Shawfield has suddenly wakened up.
The surroundings were nice, everything was good.
Yeah, and of course the whole profile of the club, the whole profile of the sport within the city of Glasgow was elevated, and that was a nice thing from a supporter's point of view. It was nice to be able to hear about your team, your favourite team on the radio, and read about them in newspapers, more so than had been the case previously.
Oh well, I can imagine. I mean, mind you, having said all this, you're going to Ashfield now, and it's up another level again, isn't it? The way it is now at present, it can hold its own at any track in Britain now, couldn't it?
I like it, Steve. I like, this is about you, not me, but I like Ashfield because of the proximity to the racetrack.
Yes.
At Shawfield, you were quite distant, you were quite far removed, albeit you had a good view of the circuit. But Ashfield, to me, the atmosphere has gone up a level because you're closer to the action.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I was looking at Jerry invited me to the playoffs finals at the end of the previous season.
Did you have to mention this, Steve?
Pardon?
Did you have to mention this?
Well, I know the wrong result, obviously, but you know there was such
Well, the atmosphere.
Such an atmosphere beforehand, wasn't there?
Yeah, the atmosphere was something else that night.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. Well, occasion with the wrong result. I mean, you know, the Glasgow management, you know, they so wanted to win it, and it was cruel to see that, you know, the faces on the promotion and the fans, and you know, I went up and I'd enjoyed the night, but I felt guilty that I'd enjoyed it.
I know what you mean.
Enjoyed it as an event.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy the result, but I enjoyed the event, and I felt a little bit guilty about enjoying myself. You know, even though the club got beat, but it was a lovely occasion.
It was memorable, despite the result and the outcome. It was a memorable night, and you know, Glasgow fans will remember it for a long time. And I think it's only fueled the hunger to go one better, hopefully in 21. Yeah. Steve, we're still talking about Shawfield, and that's okay. I'm just thinking of a couple of standout things, you know, sort of mention-worthy things that involving you. So you did celebrate your testimonial in '88, which was a great occasion. You even had people running marathons for you, raising money. Don't know who that might have been. Anyway, but 1990, for the first time ever, as skipper of the team, you lifted some silverware, the National Series trophy. Glasgow, to this date, the only club ever to have won that. That must have been a nice occasion, Steve, because you put a lot of effort into Glasgow Speedway over a lot of seasons, and here you were at long last in 1990, able to lift some national silverware.
Yeah. I mean, the club deserved to win things. The club was big enough to win these things, and you know, they won the bloody league after I packed in, didn't they? So, you know, maybe I was holding them back, I don't know. But
did you ever have any regrets, Steve? I think when you retired, you were 36, which wasn't, you know, maybe in those days that was a bit more standard than it is nowadays. I'm not sure.
Well, it was. You felt as though you were an old man in the team then, you know, because people didn't have longevity in speedway in those days. You know, in general, I don't know whether it was more. I don't know. Maybe. I wonder if, you know, the introduction of air fences and you know, health and safety in general.
Mm-hmm.
The bikes are more safety conscious. You know, that you can't get your fingers in chains, and you know, there's a lot of issues regarding safety of the bikes. And there's the air fence. Maybe that's extended the career of riders a bit more. You know, because it used to hurt when you rattled them white plank fences.
What we're thinking back now, you know, as best you can remember, stepping back into your mindset in '92, had you just had enough? It was the right time for you, circumstantially, with commitments and such like. Yeah,
it was a case of that. Yeah, and you know, the two lads, Simon and Richard, they were heavily into the motocross.
Yeah,
I mean, we've got the motocross bikes. I mean, you can't choose you know, the future of your kids, but they were daft on bikes.
Yeah.
So we've got the motocross bikes, and I in the back of my mind, I thought that it'll be good training for when they switch to speedway. And speedway's boring. Go around in circles when you can, you know, leap over jumps and stuff. So, you know, they decided to do the speedway, the motocross thing, and Richard eventually turned to speed, and I think Simon might have as well. You know, I wish I'd pushed Simon a bit more because he was a natural on speedway bike.
Okay.
He used to go down on the beach on my bike with just his trainers on, pair of shorts, helmet, and he could slide.
You could slide it. Wow.
Full throttle. You could take one hand off and wave to me, and you know, and I think I wish I could have done that while I was racing. You know, but you know, choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think if Richard had gone earlier to Speedway, although he's doing brilliant for himself.
Yes.
But I think, if it started with a lot of the guys that he was racing with, if it started at 16, he would have just given him that, that bit more of a an earlier introduction to the sport, and I think he would have kicked on a bit, even higher.
I think sometimes, Steve, in life we're all just passengers, really. Life works the way that it's intended to work, and you can't have any regrets about it. So, thinking back, Steve, you done lots of things in your speedway career. You did some travelling. I'm thinking of the indoor ice speedway and such like. You raced speedway in some impressive locations. When Steve Lawson sits down with a glass of something relaxing and thinks back to your whole speedway career, can you pick out just one or two key moments that make you smile the broadest?
Well, mentioning the ice speedway, that was actually that was good to travel, and we were a bit of a it was like the boys on tour sort of thing, and Hans Nielsen was part of the event. And you'd stay at the same hotels. We'd all stay in the same hotels together, and it was good to sort of be on the road with a gang of speedway riders. It was exciting. Other than I can't really pick out any specific.
Too many good memories. That's not a bad thing.
Well, yeah, the most of them are good. I mean, it's not all good, but most of it is. Yeah.
And you're still involved, as we've touched on. You still travel around the UK and visit, and pull up at a lot of the circuits that you used to back in the day. I was going to ask you, if you don't mind, what's your thoughts on current day state, I guess, or health state of British Speedway compared to how you left it, almost 30 years ago now?
Well, obviously, I'm not saying obviously, but it seemed at the time when I was riding as if Speedway would be around forever. But when you look now, you start to think, is it going to survive, another 10, 20 years? It'll be sad if it doesn't, but if you read the history of the sport, it nearly died in the 50s, didn't it? It was down to 12 clubs.
Yeah, that's right.
In total, and it picked itself back up again. Look at the 80s. I reckon were a good era for Speedway. When the Americans arrived, Penhall and Schwartz, Segales, all these guys, Moran. There was some glamour in the sport, and it was on the World of Sport on a Saturday afternoon, and Speedway riders were nominated for Personality of the Year, and it was a household sport. But when I watch Speedway nowadays, it's actually better than it was when I was riding. Maybe a lot of people won't agree with that, but you tend to look back with rose-tinted glasses. But the quality of the Speedway I've seen, when I've been travelling around, it's brilliant. I might be spoiled a little bit because I see Bellevue more than anywhere else. The racing is absolutely fantastic. And, when I think back to my day, there wasn't any more passing then. In fact, less. I think the riders have got more professional, but the sport isn't big enough to support that level of professionalism. That sounds a bit silly, but I think the sport as it is can support a semi-professional sport, but riders are demanding. Well, they see what's available on the continent, and it's not available in this country. They've just got to count the heads that are in the stadium and do the maths. So I don't know what the answer is.
I think that's always the key question. What is the answer? Because probably no single person has. There probably isn't a single answer. That's the truth of the matter.
Well, one way I see the future going is the Speedway clubs need to own their own track. I don't think the shared stadiums are the way forward. Such as Somerset, they can put events on, and the guy that's interested in running Workington, he's got plans to run music festivals, car rallies, all kinds of things to support the speedway.
Okay.
And that's what Rob Godfrey does at Scunthorpe.
Yeah.
And they do similar stuff. The training schools they have at Redcar. And Leicester's a bit that way. They utilise the stadium. And I think that's how it can survive, rather than, like at Workington, they had to pay 20 grand a year rent to the rugby club, and that's £20,000 taken out of the sport, isn't it? If they own their own club, their own track, they could invest in it, and I think that's got to be the way forward. Try to get self-standing tracks and where you can control where the monies are going, instead of just being blown away with rent money.
No, wise words, Steve, and fingers crossed. I think you still believe, I still believe, as the most Speedway fans, in the product. To me, there's nothing more exciting. There's no other sport that quite touches Speedway at its brilliant best. And you watch some of those Grand Prix on TV, and you see Smarswick and Tyler, and these guys are absolutely awesome.
And well, a prime example of that, everybody talks about the 1981 World Final at Wembley. There wasn't that many good races. This might not go down too well. But there wasn't that many good races there on that. And there was what was the 75,000 watching it compared to the Grand Prix now. You see more action in one race sometimes than you would in the whole meeting. And I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but if it's true, I mean.
Well, you mentioned earlier, Steve, about the rose tinted specs, and I subscribe to that, because I do think I enjoyed my Speedway growing up. I enjoyed watching you race, and during all those years that we spoke about. But was the quality of the racing so much better than it is today at Ashfield? No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It's all relative, and it's all. But for me, like you've touched on as well, for me it's the profile of the sport. The sport needs to grow its profile, maybe cut its cloth accordingly a little bit, but the product itself ain't too bad.
No, I mean, my wife's the secretary of a motocross club, and we run schoolboy adult meetings. There's not a lot of prize money, but we can get 1,000 people in to watch that, and it's it's not as good as Speedway in my opinion. But it's it's a cheaper form of entertainment, I suppose. I mean, it doesn't cost you that as much as a Speedway track, but it's it's not even semi-professional. It's an amateur event, but people will go and watch it, and it's a good day out. And as you say about cutting the cloth, I think that's what needs to happen a little bit.
Well, listen,
and then gather some momentum up, and once you've got a few more cell phone speedway tracks, stadiums, you can crack on again, can't you?
Yeah.
And that's where Poland turned out trumps, because they did that investment in their stadium, didn't they? Years ago, and they've got excellent tracks.
I mean, let's remember, Poland is held up as a shining light, and that's fair, I think. But I mean, I'm no expert, but Polish clubs, even in the Extraliga, they're still propped up financially by companies and local authorities and things. So it's not all they're not all entirely self-sufficient, but certainly the health state is light years ahead of British Speedway currently, probably. Steve, believe it or not, we've been talking for over an hour, and I could talk to you for many more hours, but I know you've got a life to get on with, and a wife to speak to. I've got one as well, and who knows how many people would stay tuned and listen to you and I chew the fat for too much longer. So how about we perhaps plan to do another one of these at some future date, Steve?
Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't playing hard to get, by the way. When you said earlier on you chased me off, we just didn't have any bloody internet.
I was just saying it for effect. Steve, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure, an absolute delight to be able to sit down and speak.
Yeah, I've enjoyed myself.
Speak some speedway, and hopefully, when we both switch off, we'll be thinking later on tonight about some of the events and some of the occasions that we touched on. It was a real pleasure having you in the tag. Served Glasgow Speedway for all those years, Steve. Thank you very much for all the memories, and look forward to seeing you back up at Ashfield in 2021.
I'm going to try and get it as much as I can, because I want to see how the track rides, for one thing. I'm quite excited about that, and I hope the riders enjoy, what we've done during the winter. I know I would as a rider. I tend to do things how I would have liked it to be, and I think it'll suit the guys when they turn up next year.
Steve, the best way to test out the track would be for you to jump aboard a bike. What's the chances of Steve Lawson doing a few laps one meeting next year at Glasgow?
Behind closed doors?
No.
You see, the funny, I was just we were talking about that today with Dan. You can't actually do speedway half-heartedly. You've got to commit to it.
Yeah.
I couldn't get on a speedway bike and just tootle around. You've got to go through that barrier where you're full throttle.
Yeah.
And if you don't ride like that, it's hard work. But it's if I got the bottle to get through that full throttle stage, I might have a little practice on my practice track, and if I can get around there, I'll come up with a skate.
You do that, Steve. I'll keep badgering you occasionally, because that would be a
Well, I see Doug Wyer's been riding it.
Well, there you go. There you go. If Dougie Wyer can do it, Stevie Lawson can do it. Yeah.
He's got 10 years on me, so.
Well, it sounds like you're coming round to the idea already, Steve. Steve, a pleasure once again. Look after yourself. Regards to the family, and we'll catch up with you in 2021. Have a lovely Christmas.
Thank you. That's it to you. Thank you.